Good evening, everybody. This is Gary Tucker, and I'm coming at you live from Smokehouse Bay on Vancouver Island in British Columbia, Canada. This is going to be a fascinating video, probably one of the most interesting ones that I've ever made. It's pretty ambitious. I'm going to talk to you about time travel, how I've learned to do it, and have been doing it for the last several years. I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to teach you how to do it too. At the same time, and as a preliminary to embarking on this difficult task of teaching you how to time travel, I have to explain the nature of existence to you, which I'll take 5 minutes and do. Afterwards, and for me the most exciting part about this whole exercise, is that I'm going to suggest to you a manner in which we can use this newfound knowledge that I'm about to distribute to you as a means for helping us deal with and get through the coronavirus that's besieging the planet right now, and some events that are going to be taking place in the near future that I have seen on my travels. So, we got a lot to cover here. Let's get started. You'll see before me that I've got a yellow blanket laid out. We're going to start with the nature of existence here so you understand how this all works. Everything in existence is formulated from a single primal energy that I call consciousness. This yellow blanket here that I have before me represents consciousness as a sheet of energy that encompasses everything that's in existence. It is the primal source of energy. Within that field of energy, everything else that is there is consisted of varying forms of that one energy. For example, take a look. We got a red towel here. This red towel is, let's call it cosmic mind, if you will, okay? Mind is a container, and as a container, it stores packages of energy as information within it in a condensed space. It's that feature that allows us as human beings to be able to perceive what is held within the container, the red towel of mind. Now, you've heard the yogic literature and Hinduism talk about reality as being, or our world as being an illusion. And the reason that they suggest this is because of the perception of time. These three glasses represent different aspects of time, the way that we as human beings typically perceive them. So for the sake of this illustration, my mug is the past as we perceive it. This mason jar is the present, okay? Everything that's going on right now in the here and now is contained within the mason jar within mind. And our champagne glass is the future. The reasons that the yogic literature and the Hindus talk about time and our perception of it as being an illusion is because there is no past, present, and future. Everything that exists within the blanket of consciousness as energy and within the container of mind, in reality, takes place simultaneously and at the same time. I'm going to show you how this happens and maybe explain to you why it's so difficult a perception for us as human beings to have. I have to remove the past, the present, and the future. But remember the spots that they took on the towel. The past was here, now was here, and the future was here. And that is the way that we perceive it literally as human beings. But in reality, the mind can be folded like this, and like this. And this is accurate. So what we end up having when the mind as a container is folded in this manner, which it is in reality, you've now got the present, which we can all conceive and deal with quite easily, encompassed with the past and the future, all in a simultaneously now experience. There's that enigma solved and explained to you in the best way that I know how to do it. But let's return to our more conventional model, our lineal model of time, so that we can carry on with this description. There's my future, there's my past, and there's my now, okay? We all share that perception, so let's stick with that for the sake of me explaining time travel, showing you how I've been doing it and explaining how it works. So let's recap a little bit here before I go any further. Everything is simply energy. There's a base form of energy formed consciousness. Mind is composed of consciousness. Consciousness is intertwined with, intermingled, entangled with mind. It's what mind is made of, and consciousness flows through it as the energy that vitalizes it and gives it energy. All of the material aspects of existence are contained within mind itself. All of the events from the past, the present, and the future are composed of mind. Mind runs through them and animates them and gives them life. And the physical elements are composed of it. So we now have consciousness, mind, and matter, and everything that takes place in the past, the present, and the future, all combined to the same primal energy and different manifestations of it. We as human beings have some really, really exciting features to us that enable us to access the past, the future, and deal in the present. Mind is a container which holds information both as memory and as a projected potential. Everything that has already taken place in the past still exists as memory in our container of past events, thoughts, and feelings. It must be understood at this point that your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your actions, and all of the material things that existed in the past, the present, or will exist in the future are simply elements of energy that are units of information. And they are eternal, okay? Consciousness, as the primal energy form, captures them. What's happening on a second-by-second basis, minute-by-minute, day-by-day, year-by-year basis is that consciousness is taking snapshots continually. Every time there's a snapshot of consciousness, it's one more blanket on top of another, layered and layered and layered and layered. And this has been going on for billions and billions of years since the beginning of time, ironically. Isn't that funny? Here I am as a human being, and now we're going to get into time travel proper. And to help you conceptualize this, we're going to use our birthdays as a analogy. If today was my birthday, and Jack and Jill came here for my birthday, we had chocolate cake, we each had a Corona together to celebrate my birthday, and I'm talking about the beer, not the virus, and I want you to know that we all stood 6 feet apart, and we did not touch one another. Even though I wanted to give them both a hug and a kiss, we abstained, okay? It's not like we're idiots or trying to perpetuate a problem, so that didn't happen, but I digress here. I can easily recall all of the events that took place today on my birthday, and as I'm discussing them with you now, I'm assembling those units of energy as information and knowledge in my present memory and passing them on to you. There's nothing that's that mysterious about that. Last year on my birthday, 1 year ago, Jack and Jill both celebrated my birthday with me. But last year, we went down to the beach for a barbecue, and we drank a 6-pack of Stella Artois on the beach, and we had a barbecue and T-bone steaks, and it was a beautiful night with a fantastic sunset. There was a gentle breeze in the air and a slight chop on the water, and we watched a sailboat sail into the horizon until we could no longer see it, and it was magnificent, one of the most fantastic birthdays I've ever had. I have just traveled into the past, and the way that I have done that is by assembling units of information, my emotions that were connected with those events, and all of the sensorial stimuli that took place 1 year ago on my birthday. By assembling those units of information as both thought, feeling, and actions that took place in a very real physical environment, I have reassembled the energy that composes the past and then translated it to you today. That's how you travel into the past. The more sensorial information that you can capture and reassemble, the more realistic your visit to the past is going to be. When you can recapture 100% of all of the information that took place in the past event, then you have in fact returned to the past, and there is no difference whatsoever from actually being there and living that event for the first time than there is reliving it through your recapitulation and reassemblation of the information that took place. Think about that. The future, our champagne glass of time. And this is where our hope lies for the future. And this is the one that I really want to teach you about the most, because this is where change begins to be made and how we can take control and change the problems that we are now encountering, and one day be able to sip from this champagne glass of the future as the now, as the present moment now. And here's how you do it. We're going to talk about the birthday that I'm going to have next year. And I'm again going to invite Jack and Jill on my birthday. But this time, because the coronavirus will now be dealt with because of other things that we're going to do in the future, our champagne glass of the future, Jack and Jill and I are going to book the trip of a lifetime. And we're going to go to Fiji and rent a beautiful chalet that's set out over the water. We are going to go snorkeling in crystal clear waters, and we're going to see whales and dolphins, and we're going to have barbecues on the beach and meet the local people. We're going to take a sailing trip and go visit some of the islands where they're filming Survivor, one of my favorite TV shows. We're going to go visit them ourselves, and we're going to see volcanoes and tropical forests and go through hikes. And it's going to be absolutely magnificent. All three of us are going to go there. We're going to be high-fiving each other all the time. We're going to be indulging in the local food and learning about the customs of these people. And it's going to be such an educational experience, something that all of us will then remember for the rest of our lives. What I have just done is use the capacity of my imagination to project into the champagne of the glass of the future. And I have begun to assemble units of energy that involve intellectual thoughts, the emotions that I'm going to have in connection with those thoughts, and the physical aspects of the event that is going to take place 1 year from now on my future birthday. The more complete that I can make my assemblage of those units of energy as thoughts, feelings, actions, and physical elements, the more complete that event becomes, and the closer it becomes to being real, as in something that is actually taking place right now in the present moment. When I manage to complete the assemblage of that information, those units of information as a complete data package, there is no difference between a future event and a present moment event. Think about that. Now let's move on to what the human mind typically refers to as present moment events and happenings. And how can we ignore COVID-19, the coronavirus right now that has all of us under self-quarantine, social isolation, and this movement where we're not allowed to touch each other or really spend too much time together, especially in groups. Wow, this has never happened before in the history of my life. I just turned 56 on my birthday. It's big. I believe that there is a virus and that people are dying from it and that it's continuing to spread. Let me say that first and foremost. I'm not belittling the advent of a disease that's killing people. At the same time, I'm very conscious of governments and people in power and the wealthy people that like to exercise their control over the people of the planet and the population of the earth. I've been studying world finances and governments and people for quite a few years and gained an understanding of how these things work. And I'll try to give you a quick summary so that you can follow me and see where my visits to the future have allowed me to return with what we will call a prediction of future events that are unfolding before us as we sit here. It's hard to start because for the last 2,000 years, there have been groups of very rich and powerful men who have met behind closed doors and done what they could to gather power and control the world and world events, especially through control of the financial system. Let's start with a really interesting story about a man who was a goldsmith in Germany originally, and he ran a successful little pawn shop and gold business, and I believe he was a jeweler. And he met some rich and powerful people along the way, including a king from another country. At one point, that king decided that he needed an army to protect his country against a perceived soon-to-be invader. And he gave our goldsmith the equivalent of $1 billion to go out and buy some mercenaries to help him. Instead of doing that, our goldsmith invested the $1 billion and made a ton of money with it. He just made a shitload of money off that $1 billion. When the king approached him and said, "Where's my army?" our goldsmith said, "I'm sorry. Instead of buying a bunch of mercenaries, what I've done instead is invest the money, and here you go with all the interest." And the king was amazed and decided not to kill him because he had made such a huge pile of money. What had also happened during the course of those events is the goldsmith had made a pile of money for himself. Shortly after this, you've heard of Napoleon and his fight at Waterloo that took place, in which Napoleon lost that battle. Well, the British had a bunch of people down there at that time who traveled back and forth with news of that event. When Napoleon lost that war, our goldsmith, who also had people down there, his people were the first to return back to England with news. And they told our goldsmith that Napoleon had lost that war. But what our goldsmith did... No, what our goldsmith did was to tell everyone that Napoleon had won the war. The stock market went crazy and the prices went through the roof. At that point, our goldsmith extracted all his money and assets from the stock market and made a ton of money. Within a couple of days, the British spies came back and reported the truth to the authorities that no, Napoleon lost the war in Waterloo. The stock market crashed in an unprecedented fashion, and it tanked to an unbelievable degree. At that point, our goldsmith bought all of the stocks that were available at 1/100th of what they were just a few days before. And he became fabulously wealthy, unspeakably wealthy. He owned most of Europe at that point, or at least a very high percentage of it. He then sent 4 of his sons to different countries within Europe, where they all began to take control of those countries through their mass holdings in all of the corporations that were of significance in each of those countries. And because of that, they had huge influence and were able to direct those governments in inconceivable ways. They had control of all of Europe. Well, a time down the road came when these countries got pissed off about this, and a threat was made against the goldsmith and his sons. At which time, they all went to the United States of America with their fabulous amounts of wealth. They then began to exercise that wealth within the United States of America, and they did exactly the same thing. They already had huge influence over all of the corporations that were part of our country, and they used their wealth and this influence to take control of the governments that were in place at any given time to exert their influence in any way that they wished to. This is the shadow government that we hear so much about. This is the shadow that's been controlling the United States of America periodically throughout history. Anybody who's tried to stand in its way has been assassinated. And I offer you John F. Kennedy, one of my personal heroes, as an example. And I offer you perhaps Donald Trump right now, who's fighting these influences, this shadow government, to try to maintain a degree of power by the people and for the people, okay? Along the way, he hasn't been my favorite dude, but unless I miss my mark, he's trying to do the right thing right now, and we got to at least give him a chance to do that. That's my opinion, okay? Think whatever you want, believe however you want. It's not important to me. I'm not political. I don't have political ties or alliances. I'm just a human being, and I believe in personal freedoms. Okay. So, this powerful family, whose father was the goldsmith, is now the shadow government in the States, and their family members and a group of other people similarly rich and hungry for power and control are influencing the world and all of the world's countries as well. One of the things about this group of energies that compose existence and everything in it is that they're completely balanced in the form of having both positive and negative magnetic energies to them. You can call it good and evil, dark and light, positive and negative, fast and slow. However you want to look at it, consciousness as a body of energy is composed equally and in perfect balance of both. So our reality of existence is that both have to be there in a balanced form. So when I'm talking about the shadow government, good and bad, I understand that they all have to be there. It's not a matter of eliminating one. At the same time, to create this world of the future that we want to live in, we have to decide whether we want to side with the higher vibrational levels, the powers of good and beauty and love, the energies which are harmonious with all living things in nature, or if we want to align ourselves with forces such as greed and evil and selfishness and an attitude that doesn't care whether we destroy the earth and pollute the air and the water and just rape and pillage everything and everybody in our way for the sake of our own greed and needy desires. We got to make a choice. I've traveled around the world and worked in many countries, and what I've learned is that there are damn good people everywhere I've ever been, and I know that the majority of the people on this planet want what I've talked about in terms of the higher energies. There's a lot of love out there in the world, and it's time for us to harness that love and to work in a harmonious manner which is advantageous to nature, life, and everything living on the planet, because that's what's going to turn this into a better world for all of us. And we can do it. And that the way that we can do that is through the utilization of the time travel into the future, as I have been expressing it here, where we begin to focus all of our thoughts, all of our ideas, all of our emotions, and all of our physical actions in such a way that we gather up these units of potential energies of the future, and we gather them into such a powerful pile, not just individually but collectively, and we harness these and bring them to life in the present and the now. And that's how we're going to do it, people, and that's how we're going to overcome COVID-19, this virus, the downfall of the financial system that's taken place behind closed curtains as I speak right now, and it's how we're going to survive the reboot of the financial system and everything that comes with that, and we're going to have a great life and a great future. That's all I've got to say today about the nature of existence, time travel into the future and the past, and how to create reality. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Gary Tucker saying goodnight. Thanks a lot for listening.